Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. Bit of a different format today. We had someone cancel, and I had plenty of time to get someone else, but I wanted to try it with 3 people. So here we are. We have 3 contestants. We're going to hear 5 tracks, and whoever's lowest of the 3 contestants over the 5 songs will win. So that's the format this week. I sense we're going to go back to the regular one next week, but I just wanted to give this a try. Today's guest setlist curator is Ray Robertson. Ray is the author of multiple novels and nonfiction works, including All the Years Combined, The Grateful Dead, and 50 Shows, a journey through the Dead's history via 50 iconic performances. Ray's writing has appeared in The Globe and the Mail, The Walrus, and Canadian Notes and Queries. Welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, we've got our returning champ John here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment. But first, without further ado, The Grateful Dead. The guests are in. The first, the same thing in Guest of the Year history at Winterland in San Francisco on December 31st, 1971.
Shit.
Cool guess, Ray. Are you a The Same Thing fan?
Well, yeah, the reason I love this was the New Year. It's in my, every pick I picked quite cleverly to pimp my book is from one of the essays in the book. And this one is New Year's Eve. It's the first time Donna sang on stage with the band, before they go to Europe, obviously. So that's kind of why I focused on the band. But what really got me about these shows is that Pig came back, I think, December 1st or something. And he's back and he's part of the new Keith band. And I just love the fact that he came with a couple new songs, Mr. Charlie, and brought back some old. And this was the first, I wrote this down, it was the first Same Thing since 6/6/67. So they kind of brought it out for New Year's Eve. It's just kind of a hopeful thing, considering he's kind of not with us much longer. I just love that show, and I just love Garcia's guitar on that. It amazes me how when he plays the blues, he doesn't sound like a blues player. He sounds like Jerry Garcia playing the blues, and that's just it's like when he plays slide, he doesn't sound like somebody strapping on a slide. He sounds like Garcia's personality through it. So I just love this. I love that show. It's such a hopeful, it's such a good place that, Pig's back and they're going to Europe, and it's such a happy New Year's Eve show. And also they open with Dance in the Street, which is not a real favorite of mine, but was the first one in many years as well, and the last one until 76. So it's kind of a cool show. It's not been released yet, but it will be one day, I'm sure.
Yeah, in the book, it seems that you're a Donna fan. Is
Huge
that correct?
Donna fan. Yeah, huge Donna fan. I love Garcia's voice, not as much as guitar, but I love Weir's voice. I even have a fondness for Phil's voice, but there was just something when Donna's with them. I don't know if it's just too much dude or what, but I love what she brought. Even the songs that she didn't originally play on, like stuff like Sugar Mag and The Wheel and Looks Like Rain. I mean, it looked like rain to me. It's got to have Donna. That little thing at the end where her and Bob, when they go back and forth, I just love that. Yeah. I know people say she sings off key and stuff, but I don't think a Dead show is really about sounding like the Eagles. It's more about everybody having fun. And I just thought she brought a lot of vigor and yeah, huge Donna fan.
In the book, you distinguish between beatniks and hippies, and you put the Dead with the former. Could you explain that distinction for us?
Yeah, I got some hate mail about that too. It's interesting. Weirdest thing, Deadheads. You write a novel and you get like 3 emails. You write a book about the Dead. Well, just in the sense that Garcia has said in his many biographies and stuff that if it wasn't for Kerouac and the Beats, that gave him a direction. And I think that initially, the values of the Dead were beatnik values. They were experience over quote unquote success, all those sorts of things. And of course, the hippies were born from that, you know, Kesey and being inspired by Cassidy and all those folks. But to me, the beatniks, first of all, when you think of the hippies, you think of politicism, which is fine. But the beatnik ideal was sort of not to change the world, but to make the world go away so we can be alone, left to do what we want to do. And I really think that's where Garcia, who's the conscience of the band, to me, is from. So I think those, and I'm a huge Kerouac fan, so the two kind of fused together for me that way. And it's funny because you look back on it, and there's so many bands that are tied to that period. You know, like you love Quicksilver, but they're of a period where the Dead, the music is timeless, and I think that's with their attitude and the music. I think that's that more beatnik idea of being outside of the mainstream, not even starting a new community, but just sort of rejecting the overall. You know, I think it's a lesson and a philosophy that still we could use a lot more of today.
What did the hate emails say?
That they were hippies and that I was a hippie. It's a lot of people who have personally invested. Yeah, it's like, if I don't like a show from 92, it's like, well, I was there and I had the best burrito of my life and I met my girlfriend there. It's like, I'm sure you had a wonderful time, but, it's just not, 92 is not 72 to me. And that's okay. Everybody can have an opinion. It was really surprising. There was a lot of fundamentalism in this. Like you're either with us or against us. Very much of our world we live in, like good guys, bad guys, left, right. You can't say bad things about Jerry like he's Jesus, and you can't really say bad things. And I think that's so antithetical to what Garcia was about, which was openness and exploration and asking questions and not being doctrinaire, not being, this is the party line. That's so, what's so appealing about the Dead is just the explosion of that. And then you have these wonderful, people who are fans, but it becomes really doctrinaire and very much like us versus them, which I just find, aside from irritating, just kind of ironic. Yes, and the Dead are the most undoctrinaire band it is. They're just so full of all those contradictions and all those wonderful, ambiguities that make life interesting. So that was just, it's just interesting.
Thanks, Ray. Brendan and Dylan were both 2 years off and they were closest. They guessed 73. John guessed 68. Let's meet Brendan. Brendan is 28 from New Haven, Connecticut. Brendan, why did you guess 73?
So I knew that it was going to be an earlier one. I can hear the one drummer. I could hear Keith on the piano. I'm more familiar with the same thing from the 90s. So that's where like it threw me in, where I was like, I haven't heard it outside of, I think maybe, I don't know, one time, two times for when I've just been going through the 71 shows. So that's where I got caught on it, but I could hear, and that slide. So I guess 73 to say the slide reminded me of like the Road Jimmy Weather Report slide that Jerry was doing. And the quality too is a really good sound. So I was like, if it's going to be there, obviously within like that early 70s range, I wasn't going to go past 73 because I knew it wasn't going to be that wall sound to it. And again, similar, they're almost in 72 when they've got the really good recordings as well from Europe and the other shows there. So I could kind of feel that vibe. So that's why I went 73. Just kind of playing the game too, going a little safe.
This one sounded good. It was an FM radio broadcast, so somebody recorded it. And the other thing is interesting is that the next time they played this song was 12/20/91 when Weird did it. So that's probably the ones that you know. So this is the last one for 20 years almost. So so Weird picked it up.
Great explanation, Brendan. Dylan is 34 from South Burlington, Vermont. Dylan, you also guessed 73.
Yeah. So at first I thought it was Death Don't Have No Mercy. So I was like thinking 69 the whole way. And then a little bit into it, I heard Keith and I was like, shit. So I don't know when they stopped playing that song, but like, I know it was. So I think I swung a little too far in the other direction, but also the slide was pushing me towards, not early 70s. So I went 73.
Yeah, it was basically 72. So you guys were basically 1 year off. Okay, John is our returning champ. John is 62 from Charlotte, North Carolina. John, you guessed 68.
Yes. I was under the illusion that they didn't play that song after like 67, 68.
Yeah, they pulled it out. You're right. One time.
And I had forgotten all about that. And so I just blocked out hearing Keith and everything and just put 68 in. I wanted to, I didn't want to say 67. I'm glad I said 68. So at least I'm only 3 down. So
Yeah. I think this was actually they did this with the Jug Band too. It was that old. It was one of the original.
oh, it was they played it early, yeah, in '65, I think. Yeah, so fooled me.
Brendan and Dylan have 2. John has 3. Close game. Let's hear Ray's second choice of 5. It was the other one at the Orpheum Theater in San Francisco on July 17th, 1976. Ray, cool pick. Tell us about it.
This is when they came back. I found this just so fascinating when they came back, as everybody knows, in '76. Instead of playing one night at a 13,000 seat arena, we'll do 6 nights at a 2,500 seat theater, which is so antithetical to the world we live in today. Let's make less money, but make the experience better for everyone. That's why I say I think you'll be a better person if you're interested in the day. It's not just musically, I think ethically. And so they do these 6 nights. And the reason I picked this one is because the other ones, when they came back, tended not to be quite as exploratory or, jammy as earlier. And this one has kind of that energy that you expect post-retirement other ones. By the time of '78, they're almost metallic, with a lot of fanning, and which I love, is different kind of thing. But this one kind of has that energy, but it also has an exploratory element to it. And I remember thinking when I only put 3 of the shows in the essay, but I remember thinking how much energy it would take to attend 6 shows by the Dead, let alone play them. And we forget that in a world of streaming. These are individuals who are, aging, who have bodies, and they're 6 nights in a row. It's just, to me, beautiful, that brief period where we're going to be grown-ups, we're going to have a career, but we're going to do it our way. We're going to do it we're going to keep it fun, which of course you can't do, if you're in, but they did it for a while. And I think it's quite noble. And I love these shows. They play these smaller venues because they sound better, because everybody can hear each other, because they can see the people, stay in one city longer. I just think it's quite noble. And I think there's a lot of applications to non-musical life. So I'm a big Other One fan. This one really has that intensity, but also they do get into some really weird, interesting places.
To get you more hate mail, did I understand it correctly that you don't like drums?
Oh, it depends on the drums. I think that once it becomes formalized in this, in like late '78, whereby now is the time for the drums, now is the time for space. It always reminded me of like a married couple sort of saying, we got to keep the spark alive. Let's make sure the Tuesday night's date night. So, which is great. But it's like John's. Whereas, one of the shows that I included from Austin in '71, they do a Dark Star in the first set just because they feel like it. Or one of my favorite shows. Oh shit, it might be one of these. No, it isn't. I think we talked about this. The Eyes of the World from Long Island in '73. When they're playing the other one, they're about 7 minutes into it, and they're in this real deep, spooky space. And then Garcia decides he doesn't want to. We're going to play Eyes of the World instead. I mean, to me, that is so emblematic of why they're artists first. You can't imagine any other major rock band halfway through one of their signature tunes saying, not interested, let's play something else now. It says, if we don't get off, then you're not going to get off. And I love that kind of, again, there's applications to that to real life. It's, if the audience is going to be truly entertained, possibly transformed, you can't be doing it for them. You do it for yourself, to get yourself off first. So I just love the way that they put it's this symbiotic thing. They put the art first so that therefore everybody could benefit it. And I think maybe later on, it becomes a little formulaic. It becomes a little staid. That happens with age, right? I mean, things become routinized, and it's not my fault.
Hear that, everyone? It's not his fault. No hate mail.
Don't blame it on Canada, all right? Don't blame it on Canada.
Blame Canada.
We're getting a lot of that these days.
Yeah. Well, who was closest? Oh, Brendan got it exactly, 1976.
Wow, cool.
Way to go, Brendan. How did you pull that?
So right away, I heard Mickey on the cowbell, just going away at it. So I was like, all right, 2 drummers, easy. And then Keith, same thing, piano, not on the road. So I knew, and I knew again kind of how things went 77 a little bit later, how other one kind of fell out as they were introducing these new songs and they're doing other stuff, which makes sense. Um, and then Jerry, again, he's on the Bean. So he's not using Wolf. He doesn't have that bite that it has and that sharpness, especially later on in when he brings it in like 78, 79, especially 79, it's really there. So Bean's a little bit, and it's got that like tinny because of the aluminum neck and that sound to it. So if you're listening well enough, you can start to hear where it's got like that thinness, and it's not like a bad thin, but it just isn't that same full sound that he gets out of Wolf or even his previous guitars.
Shit, Brendan. Yeah, nice work. Dylan was next closest, 1978.
Yeah, I mean that's great analysis by Brendan. I'm I'm not as up on like the gear and all that, but I knew it was late Keith era. I couldn't pinpoint it. To me, like Jerry's guitars sounded more like that piercing that you get in 78. But yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a shot in the dark, and I went with 78.
It was well played. You're right there. And
Mhm.
John guessed 72.
I have no idea why I picked 72. It was either 72 or 76. It was really the only 2 years I was considering. And yeah, and I know in 76 they played when they first came back a little more loose than they did in 77. So that's why and I felt like that was just could have been one of the jazzier parts in one of the 72 recordings. So that was my reasoning, and I messed up.
Before we go on to the next round, Brendan, I think people are probably wondering, how did you get into the Dead?
So there's like no linear path for me, I guess. The first time I ever saw anything Dead related was Phil and Friends. Actually on my birthday, July 20th, 2013 at Gathering of the Vibes, the festival that was in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Which was like, if I knew what I was going to every single year in high school, I would have like taken more advantage of it. I mean, I saw J-Rad there. I saw Mickey there. I saw Rat Dog there. And like, I had no idea. I was 15, 16, 17. Like, it was in the town over from where I grew up. So we would just go in high school all the time, and like our friends would go in, put the wristband on a frisbee and just throw the frisbee over the friends, and we'd keep doing that. So everyone could keep going in and keep going in and keep going in. So like I saw it, and that was, so I was in high school and I knew of the Dead. Like I very much knew who they were. Like I downloaded all my music off LimeWire, had it on my iPod, like had everything on there. But it wasn't what I was into at that time. And my dad was a drummer, and he was into more like the Who, a little bit like more rock, classic rock style. And whenever I like brought up, he was like, nah, not for me. Can't do it. And then eventually I went to college in Maine, and like that kind of got me a little bit more there at the University of Maine. And I had some friends, and again, then we got into Fish and we were doing it a little bit. And I was like, all right, cool. Like I can get into this more, but it still wasn't my sound. I still was changing all the time, like what I was listening to, what was popular. And then it was actually like right after I graduated in 2017, I watched the Amazon documentary, and I was like, wow, it's the whole culture, the whole aspect of everything that comes within the Dead is what I grew to like about it, which then carried into the music. And then again, as my music tastes keep evolving and changing, I've appreciated the other intricate works of it. I've gotten a lot into like the more free jazz and outlaw country and some of the older country stuff, and like those different subgenres that all fit within it. And then even honestly, like I love like even 90s Dead. Like give me that MIDI and those sounds that are just so wonky that make you feel like you're watching like a Rugrats episode with like the clanks and the sounds going around. Like I appreciate it all. But it was all those pieces, and I guess like the appreciation of all the other music I listened to growing up, from like pop punk to heavy metal to electronic music. All of those pieces come into play within the Dead in different ways. So once I kind of found all of those areas, I was like, I can just listen to all of this because there's all the tapes, there's all the recordings. It just made me like fall in love with it even more.
And Brendan, you're a taper. You were kind enough to actually tape the Guest of the Year live show in New York. You came early and set up a really cool rig, and you were kind enough to send me the tapes afterwards, which are right next to me. What do you love about taping?
So I think my first show actually was Grateful Shred at Brooklyn Bowl back in November. And I was like slowly building the equipment. Like I have a digital deck. I have an analog deck. I actually just got another one in that I'm going to get serviced. So that when I can start using that. So within obviously like a lot of us, like the tapes are what we have, what we need to listen to the music. Thankfully, there's people like Charlie Miller and other guys that do these transfers that put it all up online for us to listen to. And I found like a group online that again are around our age, even local within the city that want tapes, that were trading tapes. I have a friend, Philly Dead on Instagram, Chad out in Philadelphia, who started taping, started collecting tapes, helped me build a lot of my collection. And there's still that need for preserving music. I taped Sam Grisman Project when he was in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I posted on Reddit and I was like, hey, I taped the show. Anyone want to tape? And like a bunch of people sent me a message. Were like, I would love one. So I just made some dubs and then I sent them out and I'm like, here you go. And they're like, do you want money for it? I'm like, no, like if you want to pay for the shipping or whatever, like cool. But like, I don't need the money. I want you to enjoy the music because you either weren't there or you were there and you loved it and you want to listen back to it. So I put it all, I put up on archive. I have it on my page and then I put it onto the physical tapes and whoever wants them, I make the copies for. Like I just did Grateful Shred again last week. And then I did a local New York-based dead cover band as well at a pickleball court for them. So like anyone that I can get to, I'll do. Because again, they just appreciate it. Like Near Dead Experience, I did in the city before Fish. I did Busy's Dead Collective in the city as well. And like for those guys too, that are smaller, like they like to know like their music's being preserved and saved that way as well. So it's that aspect. Again, I work on the J cards. I hand stamp them all with vintage stamps that my girlfriend has found while thrifting. I'm not someone who's super artistic in like making shirts or drawing things or posters, but I found my niche in there where that keeps me going, especially as someone who coming up on 3 years sober. Like I have my one show at a time sticker on there. And this has made me feel that much more present at the shows and to be that much more like into what's going on, where before, like I know I was drinking or doing whatever and I wasn't there. I wasn't present. And now I'm going in and I want to be so present and sober and just there for what I'm listening and taking it all in. And I don't want to miss it now. So it's been that much more rewarding as I've gone through the process of it all as well.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Nice work. Well, you have 2 going into the third of 5 songs, which puts you 2 ahead of Dylan and 5 ahead of John. Let's hear Ray's third pick. Dark Star at Tivoli Theater in Copenhagen, Denmark on April 14th, 1972. So that odd was an unknown taper, but it was uploaded by Dave Miner and encoded by Matt Vernon. Ray, can you tell us about that track?
The truth is, I was going through a bit of a pigpen period, and it was I love Dark Star probably most of all, but it was a Dark Star into Sugar Mag, into Good Lovin', into Caution, into Good Lovin'. So again, that period where Pig's like in his last sort of pig life stages. And I just love those creamy 72 or year Dark Stars. They're not quite as ragingly psychedelic, but they've got they're edging toward more of that jazzier thing that I love with Keith, but Keith's not being particularly upfront. He's sort of laying back and doing his thing. But it's just got a real, they would alternate Dark Stars or other ones. And this night it was a Dark Star. It's just got, and I love this one too, because there's there's a mistake or some kind of off note around the 9-minute mark that Garcia makes. He's trying to do something, it doesn't work. And unlike most bands, they don't panic and try to go back. They kind of follow the mistake, the whole band, which again, what a great metaphor for life, right? You're going to make mistakes, bad things are going to happen, things you don't plan. You go, oh, okay, this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's see what we can do with this. And I think it's just so, again, endearing. That's probably not the right word, but I just love the fact that they make this, the process is as much the goal as the goal. Let's see if we can have some fun with this. And I just love it for that reason. Plus the fact that it really is about one of those classic 65, 64 minutes of just raging, just one different kind of music after another. We talked earlier about, or Brendan was saying about the different kinds of music you get. I come from a country rock sort of background. That's where I came from and got into jazz through the Dead. But I'm trying to write a book about Garcia, similar to All the Years Combined. And my thesis kind of is that the Dead are every kind of indigenous American music. There's country, there's rock, there's jazz, there's blues, there's all of it. I'm not saying like some Deadheads, we don't have to listen to anything else then. It's not that. But it really is American in the truest sense. I was into first sets because it was like the country rock stuff, Working Man's Dead. Okay, yeah, these are good. Yeah, this is okay. I was a Graham Parsons guy, Townes Van Zandt. Okay, this is okay. Oh, but this second set stuff, no. But now I'm a space head. Second sets are really what I live for. When I get something new, I go right to the second set. And that's only because Garcia and Lesh and Weir and Keith sort of opened my mind up to. I really didn't have the ears to even. And now I've got a nice jazz section that's, as I get older, yeah, that's kind of a nice place to be now. That I never thought I'd be the kind of person who would sit and listen to a 23-minute John Coltrane saxophone solo. And thanks to Garcia's guitar, I had never heard anyone talk with a guitar before. I grew up in a town near Detroit, so it was Detroit radio, kind of shitty early 80s radio. So everything's riffs, burningly fast riffs. And I listened to Garcia, I was like, he's talking in paragraphs. He's speaking. Here he's kind of funny. Here he's kind of sad. Here's kind of thing. Wow. I never thought that I would be I never thought I'd have the patience or. So I think what the Dead do at their best and Garcia's guitar does is it makes you more mindful. It's almost a Zen thing. I think it makes you more mindful of the here and now. And you don't even need drugs, although they will enhance it.
You called Garcia an amiable autocrat, which is what the band needed. Do you think that a truly egalitarian band setup can produce good music?
Well, it did. Although I don't remember that line. That's a good line. That's good. I like that. But this book seems so long ago. It's like a couple of years ago. Yeah, I love the fact that, but people say that, they say there was no leader, but then they say, yeah, no, there was no leader. And everyone would talk at the meetings. And then Jerry would like do this with his glasses. Like, do we really want to do this? It's like, well, maybe not, everybody had a vote. I just think that there's a conscience guiding it, the right decisions. You were talking, Brandon, about the documentary, Amir's documentary. And there's that great interview with Sam Cutler. Or when it was with I forget. They were talking and Garcia said to Cutler, this is great, wonderful. We want to make careers out of this, but don't try to do anything with us. Don't try to guide this. Let this thing stumble along as it's supposed to. Let's not. And eventually that changes because whatever. But initially, I just think that's so beautiful in the sense that it's a process of discovery, which again is a great metaphor for life. It should be a process of discovery, and I think that they embody that. Their concerts embody that.
Yeah. Thanks, Ray. So Dylan and Brennan both guessed 74, and they were closest. John guessed 69. Dylan, why 74?
Yeah, I was thrown off by the audience tape there. Did not sound like Europe 72 at all. It sounded like a very big sound, like the bass and everything. So I was thinking it was like an audience tape of wall of sound. That threw me. But it was a great pick. I loved it.
Yeah, Brendan, 74 as well.
Yeah, same exact thing as Dylan. I thought it was wall of sound, similar. Like I could hear Phil's bass. I could hear really clearly. I wasn't hearing Keith. So that was kind of throwing me a little bit. And I've only listened to, honestly, really the soundboards from the 72 tour. So I thought it was one of those wall of sound indoor shows. There weren't many of them, but I could tell that was inside. So that's where I was like, I don't know. playing the game a little bit, 274 feels safe enough, and it should be close enough. And it definitely pulled me out there.
And John 69.
Well, I didn't hear Keith, and it just sounded like an earlier period to me, and I got kind of sucked in. It was a great pick, Ray. You really got me again. I mean, it's just tough.
If
I
I
mean,
was
no.
guessing, I would guess what you guessed because it's got that creamy sound, and you don't really hear Keith. And I don't know about you guys, but the 72s don't sound that great to me, considering it was 16 track. You know, they kind of sound kind of flat. I don't know. I'm not an audio guy, so I don't know what that means. But it's still amazing, amazing. I mean, every show. The problem with doing, I think I did 3 shows in the book. The problem is that they're all great. It's not like every night you could write about every night. You know, it's just something. It's just one of those clearly a high point. You know.
Yeah. So again, you kind of review 50 shows and tell the story of the Dead throughout, as the chronological shows are reviewed. Was it difficult to find that many adjectives and creative ways to talk about the band's sound?
Right. Well, there's 2 things there. I'm not a music. I mean, I'm not a scholar like you guys are, or people I've met through this. I'm a novelist who fell in love with the Dead. So I try to tell the story of the Dead as a novelist would, like using the shows as pieces. That's why I don't, I don't focus a lot on the latter years because they're not as interesting. I'm not saying they're not important, but for me that way. What was the question again? Because I have a good answer.
Writing one review is difficult, but writing 50 in a row without getting repetitive.
Well, it's interesting because I was this new book that's coming out in October. It's a book about 12 musicians or whatever. So it was an introduction to it. And I was thinking when I was writing it, my lack of knowledge, I have friends who are musicians and have that terminology and I don't. And I've almost, it helps because I'm kind of lazy and stupid, but also it helps because I think having to struggle for the similes and the metaphors and the analogies helps. Maybe it's not going to help a musician, but for somebody like me who just loves the music, who comes from a non-music background, I'm not a musician. Sometimes it's quite rewarding to sort of say, okay, I don't know exactly, like the way you were describing, Brand, you were talking about the kind of guitar Garcia's using in 76. What I would probably try to do in the book instead is sort of talk about not that tinniness, but that more kind of like bright sound, and it's not really helpful to a musician, but I think I'm trying just to write a story about how this music changed my life and where they are. So yeah. And that's why the book's not a huge book. I mean, my original goal, you always start off with a rough draft. My rough draft was all the years combined, the Grateful Dead and 100 shows. And I thought, I just can't, I don't have the metaphors really, because after a while, when it's really, really good, what can you say other than shut up and listen, right? You don't want to, no one's going to buy a book that says that. So, I mean, I think that I'm a cheerleader more than a critic. I'm like this is really important. Like you gotta, you're probably like that with your friends. You gotta check this out. And I felt like, well, since I use words, I'm going to try to proselytize as much as I can. And so you using those kind of words, yeah, you really do have to sort of, I prefer short and intense rather than long and ponderous. So it's a short book, but I think it gets the job done. So.
Yeah, it's real satisfying read because you finish chapters real fast and it makes you feel like you're a good reader. So you just keep flipping and flipping and it's like, oh my God, I just read 50 pages. I'm a genius.
Well, that's because I didn't do an English degree. So I wasn't taught how boring books were supposed to be read. So I did a philosophy degree. So all my reading was done on the side, surreptitiously. So when I did become a writer, I come at it primarily from a reader saying, I want every page to be, I want something to pop on every page. I want there to be funny. I want the language to crack. I want to say something that you might disagree with, but at least it's provocative or whatever. And I think that's helpful. I think that that the readers, I deserve that as a reader, so other readers deserve it. So I don't know if I pull it off, but thank you. Yeah,
you do. Yeah. Okay, so 2 songs left. Dylan's at 6, Brendan's at 4, John's at 10. Before we go on to the 4th song, Dylan, how did you get into the Dead?
I knew this question was coming and I'm still thrown off by it. But it's not something I grew up with necessarily. But I was always super into music from a young age. And I think I have my dad to thank for that. Like the Allman Brothers live at Fillmore East was playing it constantly in our house. I don't think it was till I got, around like 11 or 12 that I really started to appreciate it. I started to really dig in for myself into like classic rock and all that. And also my first love in middle school was I was super into like third wave ska, like Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake's.
It's common on the show.
Which,
It's common.
yeah, which I'm still into. I'll still put that stuff on. But then through high school and all that, like I feel like it was when I was coming of age, it was kind of like a bit of a lull for like the jam scene in general. Like Fish was done as far as anybody. This is like mid 2000s, and so it wasn't like as like the Dead weren't really that like prominent in like the culture around that time. Obviously like Bobby and Phil were still out there like doing their thing, but I feel like they weren't like getting a lot of like young fans. At least in my experience, like at my high school, that there weren't really any like Deadheads at all. So I was familiar with the Dead, but it wasn't something that was around. But as I got older, like I started to get exposed to it a little more, and I'd hear something and be like, who is this? It's the Dead. I do remember the song that got me into it, and Mississippi Half Step from November 5th, 1977. I don't remember where I heard it or anything, but I remember my reaction to it, and it's just like it's like one of those moments that like we all know as music lovers, like you have a physical reaction to it, like the hair stands up on your arms, and I was just like, this is different. So after I heard that, I just give me as much of that as as you got. Like I didn't know that that's what the Dead did. So I just dove in from there. At the time, I was driving cab. This was like in the early days of Uber when there were still taxi cabs, and it was just the perfect thing to put on in the cab. Like nobody would be bothered by it, whatever. But like every once in a while, somebody would come in and turn it up, and that was cool for me to see. Like that bond that you have with people just over this music, and it's just a huge part of my life now.
Yeah, Half Step's a good example of the greatest of the Dead because people don't mention it that often, and I'll take Half Step over like any Who song. Most people don't even mention it, and that it's like one of the better songs ever. So I totally get why that radicalized you, Dylan. Thank you, Dylan, and we got 2 more songs. Let's hear Ray's 4th pick. Cosmic Charlie, May 2nd, 1970, Harper College. Yeah, Ray, one of the best shows ever.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about the Grateful Shred, Brendan. When I was in LA, you were apparently out of town, Mike. You were to come to the gig I did. The guy who put it together, Albert Berger, he got a bunch of guys from the Shred, and they called them the Harper Valley Drifters, and they had kind of an acoustic thing. It was kind of cool. This was the last Cosmic Charlie, I think it says here, for till 70s. No, 8 more till 76. And they did it 6 times. And I'm interested. I picked it because there are all those songs that Garcia and Hunter wrote in their sort of inaugural songwriting phrase that later Garcia said were kind of unwieldy, a little lyrically, and that's true. You know, they kind of have that Elizabethan Baroque sound, but I'm very fond of it anyway. And I like that it doesn't have that seamless Americana thing to it, and it is kind of unwieldy, but it's just something really appealing about it. And when they came back in 70, I almost picked something from 76, one of the verses from 76, but I liked the fact that they tried to incorporate all parts of their, like when they started playing electric, they include stuff from the from the Warlocks, and then later on they include stuff. It's that kind of big tent kind of deal. So Cosmic Charlie has kind of that kind of awkwardness to it, but I just think it's a great song, and the lyrics are very much of that kind of Baroque period of Hunters. I prefer the latter, but it's like a photo album from high school. It's got that high school feel to it. I just kind of like it a lot.
Yeah, you made a great point in the book about how the lyrics evolved from the 60s, from the China Cat to Dire Wolf, as references to psychedelics to embodying psychedelics.
Yeah, well, I think just became a better writer. I think he became. I don't think Hunter was writing songs before that. He was writing a novel, doing this and this. And I think the songs, that the lyrics become more what song lyrics are. Lyrics aren't poetry, in spite of a lot of professors' attempts to make them appear that way. Poems come with their own music. But when Garcia supplies the music and fits those words, and the words become simpler, but they become, I think, richer and more dense. Like there's stuff that off American Beauty or Working Man's Dead or all that Europe stuff that are simple songs, but they're just imbued with such inherent contradictory, elements, and there's a richness and a denseness. Whereas I find the earlier stuff, while endearing, kind of ostentatiously psychedelic. Like I'll use endless alliteration, or I'll use words that don't fit quite there, and that's good. But again, I don't want to sound dated, but there's just something timeless about Dire Wolf that isn't timeless about Cosmic Charlie. And it's not a criticism. It's just the way I feel. But yet I do love that period. We all love our 68, 69 Dead. I mean, there's just, that's headphone music, the essence of it. So I just wanted a little bit from the the Baroque days.
Yeah, speaking of poets, your new book coming out in the fall is Dust: More Lives of Poets with Guitars. Is there anything you're allowed to tell us about that?
Well, governmentally, I'm not allowed to, but I'm going to do it anyway for you. I wrote a book, came out in 2016 called Lives of the Poets with Guitars. And it was about just a bunch of musicians that I thought were kind of uncategorizable and real individualists who sort of made their art regardless of commercial success. I play Gene Clark, Towns, Paul Siebel, Willis Allen Ramsey, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. And so here we are in 2025. So it's the next version. This one's called Dust because one of the people in the book is this kind of the centerpiece essay for me. There's a bunch of people, Nico, Alex Chilton, James Booker, all sorts. But the Danny Kerwin essay, who was a member of Fleetwood Mac from 69 to 74, who I'm a big fan of, and I don't think his work is known well enough. So the book's called Dust: More Lives of Poets with Guitars because the Danny Kerwin song called Dust is an important song. But yeah, so it's just, who else is in it? Dwayne Allman's in it, Captain Beefheart, Lee Mavers of the Laws. Just people who sort of like, I'm not looking for to be the cool guy with outsider artists. I had to love the music to write the essay. When I wrote the first book, people would say to me, hey, you should write about this guy. No one's heard of him. You'll come off really cool, like you discovered. I have to have their music in my home. I have to know their music really well. And so this version is just more of the same, really. Just people that have meant a lot to me, not only musically, but in terms of what their life embodied, in terms of orienting myself toward life. I'm not saying that they made the best decisions always, but I'm trying to think of other people in the book. I can't remember. But anyway, there are 12 of them, and that's in November. So yeah, available and perfect for Christmas gifts.
You're fairly prolific. Do you ever stop writing?
Well, I don't have kids, so that helps. I've got a wife who's a painter, so she has no desire for me to be a grown-up either. So what I found as I've gotten older, though, is that I tend to alternate fiction and nonfiction. So the novel that came out before this one, or the book that came out before All the Years Combined, which I think was 2023, was a novel called The States Large and Small, which was actually about a deadhead. partially. And then I wrote All the Years Combined, and now there's this music book, and then another nonfiction book, and then there's another novel. So I just find that if I use a different kind of muscle, I mean, I still think it's still sentences. You want sentences to pop and be funny and be alive. But I do find that making a world up is different than sort of having, okay, here's the dead zoo. Now you can write something about it. So that's kind of my refresher, is to sort of do that. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to do, right? You walk your dog, you make enough money to pay the bills, and then I've got a little shack out back, and for 2 or 3 hours a day, things make sense. And I come back into the world, and it's confounding all over again. But I have that 2 or 3 hours a day where things make sense. And so the writing keeps me grounded. Yeah, definitely.
Do you get like loaded on caffeine when you write?
That's funny you should say that. I can't drink caffeine. I'm obsessive compulsive disorder. I was diagnosed like 20 years ago. So if I have like a Diet Coke, it'll be like taking 6 grams of cocaine. I just can't. Yeah. My wife has actually told me, if you stop smoking pot, I'm going to leave you. Because if I, no, it was really bad. I'd be hiding cans of Diet Pepsi in my little workroom out back. And yeah, really bad. So I can't do those things. But what I found, I used to work at night. But now I find that if I get to my desk, as soon as I get up, make a cup of decaffeinated tea or whatever, my brain is clean enough. I'm not sullied by, 10,000 things that piss me off already. So I can actually be in a semi-pure state. So I'm good for about 3 hours. And then that's it for the day. I mean, I don't, if you work 5 days a week for 3 hours, you'd be surprised how it adds up. I mean, I don't, unless I'm sick or something. Like if I go on a vacation, I still work because that keeps me grounded. It's probably a disease, really. It's nothing really admirable about. But I've turned my disease into a career. So it's but yeah, no, it really, if I don't sort of make sense of the world 2 or 3 hours a day, the world tends to get away on me and overwhelm me. So it's illusionary, but it's working for me so far. So let's not rock the boat, I guess.
Sure. Thanks, Ray. Brendan and Dylan got it 1970. John gets 69. Yeah, Brendan 70. Did you recognize it was Harper College?
Yeah, I've listened to Harper College enough times to kind of pick up on that. So it was one of the easier ones, but it's still, I mean, one of the best shows to just go back and listen to, between the acoustic to the electric and just the mix of how you have one Era of the Dead ending and another Era of the Dead starting in a sense,
Right.
and just mixing. Yeah,
I should have said that.
yeah, there you go. You can just write into the book. Yeah,
I should have said that. In second edition, I'll put that. Also, the Garcia is playing steel guitar with the new writers before the acoustic set. So he's on stage for nearly 6 hours. I mean, that's just... There's a great line by V.S. Pritchett. He's talking about Chekhov, and he says that genius is spiritual greed. And I think of Garcia at this point in the best sense of greediness. He's like, I want that. I want that. I want all this music. And we benefit from it. It's just that this gluttony, someone asked Miles Davis, what was it like to play with the genius Charlie Parker? And Miles in his nimble voice says, Charlie Parker was a hog. What do you mean? He wanted to eat everything, fuck everything, play everything, shoot everything, drink everything. Geniuses are hogs. And he says, God bless him for it. It's like, Garcia wanted, I play steel guitar, I'll play acoustic music, I'll play rock Americana, I'll play psychedelic music, and go home and have a cup of tea. It's just phenomenal. That whole period is just mind-boggling, the amount they got done.
Probably had some performance-enhancing substances if you're playing 6 hours a day too.
Good cup of strong tea.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, Dylan also 70.
So I didn't recognize it as Harper College, but I definitely, I love that show. And that was, as I was listening, that was the first thing that came to mind was, this sounds like Harper College. So, I didn't know that it was, but it sounded like it. And so that's one of my favorite shows. So
Nice pull, Dylan. And John, 69.
It was either Harper College or there's another show, I think it was December 5th, 69 in Fillmore West, where I used to love that when you had a good Cosmic Charlie on there. So I just confused the two, and I'm 1 year off.
Yeah.
Hey.
5 months? Well, you're more like 5 months off. You're more like 5 months off.
5 months. Yeah.
So Dylan has 6, Brendan has 4, John has 11.
The 11.
So the 11. We have one more track from Ray. Let's hear it.
Leave all your stepping stones behind. There's something calls for you. Forget about the dead you left. They will not follow you. The vagabond who's rapping at your door, and saying all his blankets from your floor. Strike another match, go start new. 'Cause it's over now, baby.
It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, July 29th, 1966, at the PNE Garden Auditorium in Vancouver. Ray, a Canadian show.
Yeah, well, this one's for Donald.
Soon to be American show.
Yeah, that's right. Well, get it while you can. Well, the reason I put this, like, is one of the fun things about, I mean, it's an illusion that people know something and then they write a book. I mean, most people write a book to find out about something. So when I was writing the book, I didn't listen to a lot of really early stuff. This is pre-first album even, because I liked the jazzy direction, etc. So of course I had to. And what was interesting was hearing Garcia learn how to sound like Garcia. He's trying to sound like Bob Dylan in this song, which we all do when you first start. When you're a writer, you try to sound like other writers and you find your own voice. So I just love the fact that Garcia is trying to. He doesn't sound like himself yet, and I think wonderful. That's one of the things that a deadhead can do. You can listen to this music and hear him become more than the sum of his guitar influences. You know, he can kind of find that, you know, the banjo player meets Freddie King, and how does he make those kind of go together? And vocally here, he's just following all the inflections and everything. And I think it's quite encouraging. It's like, you know, yeah, Jerry wasn't Jerry always. He was, he's 24 and he's, you know, sound like that. Plus, I love the cheesy pigpen organ there. He's arguing very Nuggets, kind of like garage rock kind of deal. So, yeah, it's kind of nice. I thought it'd be nice to end with something where they really are in that embryonic stage. When you listen to the show, so it's the Pacific Northern Exhibition Stadium. It's like was an old hockey arena in Vancouver, and you hear at the very end after the set, Garcia says, very polite, Jerry. It's like, if you're not too busy, can we get 5 Coca-Colas brought to the stage, please? And I thought, what other stage in the Grateful Dead history? Can we have 5 soda pops, please, brought to the stage? Like, they're kids, you know, they're kids. Weir's like 20. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So, yeah, it's not great art, but it's great if you're a deadhead.
Yeah. You say in the book, artistic progress is a myth. Can you elaborate on that?
I have no idea what I meant by that.
Okay.
Oh, clearly. I think I was probably goofing on the poet Philip Larkin, who said only mediocrities develop. I think the idea is that one of the things for me was that, yeah, you do hear Garcia change and become, but it's not like you grow into something else. I think you grow into yourself. Like, I talk a lot about Morning Dew in the book, how Morning Dew, when he first does Morning Dew, it's this angry protest song, which is, you know, empty. It's like, yes, the world is wrong. Big news. But when it becomes that moving thing we all love, that elegy, he's singing for all of us and the foolishness and the tragedy of human existence. And I think it's in him. It's in true artists, but I think it takes a lot of work to get it out. And I think that's what you do. You play these gigs in some crappy gig in Vancouver before your album's out. But after a while, you say, you know what? I got this song. Why don't I sing? And you listen to those Baby Blues, in 73 occasionally or whatever, and they just sound like, did Jerry Hunter write this song? Of course not. Dylan wrote it. But boy, oh boy, sure sounds like a Garcia Hunter song. And the hardest thing in the world is to sound like yourself, to be yourself, to feel comfortable in your own skin. And I just love when I write the book thinking that, okay, I can hear that evolution. I can hear, or we're changing into the most interesting rhythm guitar player, you know, from a guy who's going chunka, 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 like, please turn down, to like, where do these things come from? Like the weird little conversations he's having with Garcia. Like, I think that's just, again, transcends music. It's really about life. Like there's room for growth if you love what you do and you don't consider it work. I mean, work is something you do when you'd rather be doing something else. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing. So why not dedicate our lives to it and become more one with the music? So I wanted to end with something that's kind of primitive, but really, the roots, and of course, Dylan, Dylan's such a huge deal especially for Garcia.
Well, I'm going to make these guys wait one more second because they're the last one to go. Ray, how did you get into the Dead?
Well, I'm glad you asked because in all this years combined, there's an essay at the end called Pick a Prize, How I Became a Deadhead. And I know you've read it, so you set me up. But basically, I was 47. But like Brenna, the Dead had been there my whole life. I had purchased American Beauty. I had done this and this. It's all in the essay. But basically, I was a country rock guy, but I did like the Hammond organ. I liked Jimmy Smith and John Patton. So I saw the Merle and Jerry album, the one from '73, the solo album from the Keystone. And I was sitting in that room over there, which is my library listening room, headphones on. And I listened to that record and I put the record, I was cheap, I got it used. And I was listening to Like a Road, the last song on the record, and just saying, I got to hear everything this guy ever played. I've never had this experience before. Instrumentally, I've had it with songwriters, but the words were great and he sang them, poignantly. But I was like, I want to hear more guitar. And I'd never really had that experience. Guitar solos were to be endured, not to be indulged. And I thought, I've got to have everything. So really, I started with not the Dead, but I started with Garcia. And then, of course, I knew American Beauty and stuff. And then it was venturing into those second sets and then hearing songs like Warfrat, like, what is this? This isn't country. This isn't rock. This isn't blues. It's not gospel. What is this? And that was just the most enriching kind of like, oh shit, I've got years and years ahead of me and I could just sink into this. And it was quite exciting. You get older and it's hard to, I think that's one of the lines in the essays, like, you get past 40, it's hard to fall in love, and you go, oh, I'm in love again. It's like everything's new and that really was how it happened. It really was through Garcia's solo band. But like a lot of people, they were always there, but I didn't have the ears, I don't think, or the openness or the patience or whatever. So when it took hold though, it happened, so.
Thanks, Ray. So the closest was, Dylan got it exactly. He guessed 66. Brennan guessed 67. John guessed 65. Dylan, nice pull. Brennan still won, but that's a really nice pull, 66. How'd you figure that one out?
Well, I love that era. I mean, like Ray was saying, it's just a completely different band. So it's, just like to listen to that and hear what they became. And even if they had never become anything, like you mentioned Nuggets, like they would have been, on that compilation. And
Golden Road would have been on that compilation.
Right.
They put on one album and Golden Road
would
be on that.
And somebody would find them and be like, wow, this is great,
Yeah.
But then they became what they did. And, but yeah, I love that era for what it is.
Yeah, John, you guessed 65, which I loved. We rarely get a 65 guess. Why did you think 65?
Well, I knew I wasn't probably going to win today, but I wanted to get one right on the money. So I knew they played, this song, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, in 65 and through mid 66. And I had a shot, 50-50 shot. I'm just a little off tonight.
John, congrats on the great run.
I had a blast. I've met Mike a couple of years ago in LA.
Yep.
If you remember.
Yeah, I go around and I videotape people guessing years out front of shows, and you were out front of J-Rad, and you
Absolutely.
I think you were a year off on a Dancing in the Street.
Yeah, I was. And there was a Music Never Stopped, I think, that I was.
Oh, Music Never Stopped.
I said it's either early 78 or late 77, and it was, I picked 77 and it was 78.
That video is the most watched of all the videos on the page. It has like 300,000 views or something.
Well, yeah, my friend Jay was on there, and he saw like every show in 77 except for the one that was in Canada. And he said that was because they were in a van and him and the guys didn't know how they were going to get their drugs across the border. So,
Well, Jerry
yeah.
got stopped for the drugs that he
Yeah.
on that tour.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. That was a tricky maneuver back then, and
I
they
used
didn't
to
want to get
it
in
was
any
at
trouble.
it was at Seneca College, which is just it's not really in Toronto. It's kinda
Yeah.
like north of Toronto, but and I was too young. I was only 11 at the time, but reading about it, yeah, Jerry got the full cavity search, and that's why they didn't play Canada for 13 more years.
Yeah. I think they played there again when in Hamilton or
Yeah, in
somewhere
Hamilton,
after
yeah,
that,
which
or
is about an
yeah.
hour away, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Right.
only Canadians could search the Grateful Dead for drugs. I mean,
Exactly.
they're
Yeah.
the ones who busted Keith Richards. They're the ones who busted Keith Richards. Like, my God, he's got drugs. God bless Canada.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, you win. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Brendan.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna
Awesome.
you're gonna be tough to beat next week.
Does he
Brendan
get a
gets
plaque?
67.
Give him a big check or something, or how does that work?
He gets a guest of the year
Woo!
T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew it was played in '66. I know the show because it eventually got an official release. I think with like maybe one other show with it. So I know
Like
it was
so.
'66. And then I knew it took some time off, and then came back in '69, and then took a little more time. It was like always at this point. So I couldn't remember how much it got played from '66 into '67. Playing the game a little bit too. I was like, I know for a fact there's a '66 version, but get playing that if there was a little bit later, if it was a little bit earlier, if I did '67, I kind of gave myself that wiggle room to get that little year of space in case Dylan got. 'Cause Dylan was right there with me for most of them too, outside of like one. So I was like, I gotta be careful here. Yeah.
Play the game, man.
Yeah, playing the game. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ray, for the great picks and the great commentary.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank
Ray.
you, Ray.
I really enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great, man.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah.
This has been a hoot. We'll do this every week from now on, right?
Yep. Same
Let's do
time,
it.
same time.
Mike?
Whenever the Knicks play, we'll do it during the Knicks game, Brendan.
Looks like that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Ray's links will be in the show notes here,
cool.
but
Cool.
All the Years Combined is out, and Dust will More Lives of Poets with Guitars will be out soon.
November. Yeah.
Somewhat soon. All right, thanks so much for listening. For all the show links, including our YouTube channel, go to guesttheyear.net. And if you want to be contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guesttheyear.net. Thank you again, Ray Robertson, for an incredible series of picks and equally great commentary. His book, All the Years Combined, is a link to it is in the show notes, as is his author page with all his other novels and nonfiction work. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Shout out to Dylan, James, and Jack for helping out behind the scenes. Congratulations to Brendan for the big win. And to other contestants, thanks for playing. And remember, it's all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.